listener! Was it a good idea to employ me, Claptrap, a lovable robot with an admittedly shrill voice, to tell you about the next great looter shooter? Borderlands 4? Of course not! But you are listening, and that's the sick truth of marketing. Behold! Marketing hypnosis! Borderlands 4! Borderlands 4! Borderlands 4! Buy it! Buy it! Succumb to the marketing!
Rated M for mature.
Welcome to Only Murders in the Building,
the official podcast.
Join me, Michael Cyril Creighton, as we go behind the scenes with some of the amazing actors, writers, and crew from Season 5.
The audience should never stop suspecting anything.
How can you not be funny crawling around on a coffin? No, that's true.
Catch Only Murders in the Building official podcast, now streaming wherever you get your podcasts. And watch Only Murders in the Building, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
3 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having us as part of your weekend lineup here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. Get set for another exciting episode, as you tell us, ladies and gentlemen, with the Dr. Sky Experience. Beaming out of New York, the nation, the world, and I'm sure, way out into the cosmos. If you'd like to get in touch with us for good reason, we love dialogue. That is a conversation between you and I and the entire world. The contact number, use it often, 1-800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-9222. You'd like to email me? It's simple. It's DRSKY, Dr. Sky, of course, at WABCRadio.com. And don't forget, you can listen to all the previous podcast programs of the Dr. Sky Experience in addition to all the other top-quality, great national hosts that you can hear here on this radio station by simply going to WABCRadio.com or RedAppleAudioNetworks.com. A special thanks to our helmsmen, Tony and Bill. They navigate this incredible signal of 77 WABC out to you, and no matter where you're listening. If it's early evening or early morning, thank you once again for joining us as we move deeper into your weekend. This iteration of the Dr. Sky Show, a great episode for the next 2 hours. We talk seriously about the subject of UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, and UFOs. If you think you've heard all about it, stay tuned because our very special guest that we'll introduce in a moment is here for 2 hours. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the UAP phenomenon has moved from a fringe topic to a matter of serious national security interest and scientific inquiry, particularly with the U.S. government acknowledging the standardization, and that is the collection of data on unidentified anomalous phenomenon, UAPs. Recent congressional hearings have featured testimony from military whistleblowers and former officials, with some alleging government overclassification and potential cover-up of non-human technology. However, the official position from the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the AARO, maintains that, while certain phenomena remain identified due to insufficient data, there is no empirical evidence of extraterrestrial origins. Or is there? Our very special guest will be welcoming Darcy Weir, a producer, a director, and a writer. His background: since 2012, Darcy Weir, who resides in Alberta, Edmonton, Canada, has been on a mission to bring the world's most captivating mysteries, UAPs, UFOs, ETs, cryptids, Bitcoin, and beyond, into the global spotlight through his talents as a filmmaker. During the course of his 13-year-long career, Weir has produced a remarkable 20 productions, 18 feature-length documentaries, and 2 TV docuseries, each accessible on Amazon Prime and Apple. Weir's goal is to shine a new light on these enigmatic topics, thus making the information about them more accessible to the general public. Through his diverse, gripping, and well-researched films and TV presentations, Darcy Weir has become a well-respected as well as a high-profile voice within the global disclosure movement. With that, let's welcome Darcy Weir, producer, director, and writer, to the Dr. Sky Experience. Darcy, thank you for joining us. It's a privilege and honor to have you.
Likewise, Dr. Sky, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's an exciting 2 hours, ladies and gentlemen, because in the news, and I know we'll save that for just a moment, lots of information you're going to share us with the recent congressional hearings on what's really going on behind the curtain, as I like to say. But Darcy, if you'd take us down the path a few years ago, I thought this was quite fascinating. We had a number of congressional hearings in the past, But one of them that I'd like you to talk about is the one that happened just a couple of years ago in 2023. And talk about the people in July of 2023 who actually testified in front of Congress. Many very interesting individuals, among those David Grush, UFO whistleblower, and others. Describe to us a little more about that to set the stage for our discussion this morning.
Yeah, that was the first UAP congressional hearing, and it broke the ice for Congress, so to speak, that this is a real issue. This needs to be looked at a little bit closer. They had two Navy pilots. They had Ryan Graves, who was actually off the coast of Virginia and chased what he said looked like a cube within a sphere, nearly clipped his wings of his F-18 Raptor, and two craft that were pacing this wild, out of this world ship. They couldn't see it at first, but it kind of materialized in the sky before their eyes. And Ryan Graves, after his incident that he saw back in, I believe, 2014, he started up a Safety for Air Act, basically trying to make pilots, both commercial and militarily, be aware of these things and make it more accessible to report these things out of a safety concern. The other Navy pilot was David Fravor, who was in charge of, one of the most famous incidents, chasing the Tic Tac UFO with another pilot, Alexandra, off the coast of California.
Yeah, so that's fascinating.
That was back in 2004, and they were witnessing these Tic Tacs come out of the water and go into the water for weeks while they were on military exercises. So they also picked them up, basically at around 80,000 feet, and then they would go down to the ocean. Anything above 80,000 feet is space. So
right. That's amazing, Darcy. I mean, just reporting that for people who may not be in the aviation world. Allegedly, our so-called secret spy planes of the past, like SR-71s, you've probably known some of these pilots. They never disclosed the true altitude, but we're talking 70,000 plus feet, if that's correct. But this is interesting, not just because it, just happened at, altitude, let's say 80,000 feet, that the change of velocity instantaneously going, from the water up? I can't think of any government agency yet, and maybe you'll shed light on this, that has that available technology. Thus the mystery, right?
Right, and I mean, there is a bit of a dialogue that's happening within the media as well as the UFO community, where people are saying, hey, it's actually Lockheed Martin technology, all these Tic Tacs, and then,
wow,
OG, old-timer researchers of the UFO community are correcting that and saying, look, we've seen flying butane tank-shaped objects since, the 1940s. Was Lockheed building those then? No way. So I think it's still an enigma, right? It's still a mystery that we're trying to get to the bottom of, but it's just murkier, than ever, because there's no real government or military transparency on this.
You're right, and it's the same old song and dance there, Darcy, that we've heard for so many years, 50, 60 years. Obviously, people are not that dumb, and nobody's really dumb. That's a poor choice of words on my part. We're obviously intelligent people out there that if we look into some of these things, anybody that sees anything across the sky that they don't know about is obviously a UFO. But what I wanted to transition to, and this is fantastic, is the gentleman in that particular hearing. I wanted you to comment more on him because my eyes and ears zoomed on him, and that's David Grush. This is a very interesting individual, ladies and gentlemen. So, Darcy, take it away, because he's reported things, and I want you to go over them, that were just totally jaw-dropping, at least from my experience listening and watching.
Yeah, so the real bombshell stuff that he was saying in that hearing were that we have a UAP, a unidentified aerial phenomenon recovery program or crash retrieval program. And these were both considered special access projects that were legacy, meaning probably going back to the 1940s or before. And up until now, they're no longer legacy. They're just special access programs that are probably continuing on, but connected to commercial aerospace companies that, when you think of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works or Northrop Grumman, these are, BAE Systems or Raytheon, they're all fabled to have some kind of piece of taking part in this reverse engineering of alien craft, so to speak, that were captured at one point. Another thing David Grush talked about was that sometimes when we found these craft, there were biologics from an unknown origin. So aliens.
That's amazing. I mean, he says it, if people go back and look at the testimony, obviously you can listen to it, but it's better, obviously, like you do, as someone who does, as a producer, director, and a writer. When you see it, you look at his face, and he's kind of like without expression, and it's amazing when he says, and I don't have the exact words here, people can watch it, that he describes it as what? Non-human biologic entities and otherworldly craft, if that's the way it is. And he says it so matter-of-factly that I looked twice and I said, okay, now tell us where they are and show us the pictures. Wouldn't you think that would be the next thing that people would want? Of course.
Yeah. And I think the trouble there, which he can't just come out and do that, is that a lot of that information is highly classified.
Of course. Yeah.
It has to be shown in what's called the SCIF, secure, very high-tech security room that foreign adversaries can't listen on, and only members that have the security clearance to see that information are allowed inside of it. So presuming that this is what the story is, he goes in the SCIF, and government entities, people who represent us and others in the military or the deep state, they know the details, of course, on this. No cell phones allowed, no pictures. So that even makes it more of a mystery. When are we ever going to be told? And I don't want to sound like a naive talk show host here. That's the reason we have people like yourself here, to explore the many mysteries that are around us. And I couldn't think of a better person to talk to than you, Darcy Weir, ladies and gentlemen, producer, director, and writer, is our guest for the 2 hours. And ladies and gentlemen, you really should look into him. His website is occultjourneys.com. And if you have questions, comments, we love dialogue. It's 1-800-848-9222. Folks, and I say this on Darcy's behalf, and he'll say it in his own words, are you just fed up with the things that you don't hear? I mean, so many times, cover-up of everything from the assassination of President Kennedy, and as we move into all the conspiracy going on around the sad, very despicable act that happened here, of course, in the United States with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And not to link the two together, I mean, so many mysteries out there. But let me stay on track so we don't go way off into the cornfield on this. This is interesting to me. So the summation of that particular hearing is what, in your interpretation? So people who haven't seen it, what did we get out of that so we move forward on this and learn, hopefully, the answers? Well, I think the very first hearing was just, we're not alone. The government or the military-industrial complex is connected to the DoD, Department of Defense, now called the Department of War, have been keeping a tight lid on this secret for many, many decades now. And the only way we're going to get more transparency is if government, our congressional members, our senators, and so on, are allowed to discuss this and then make it more public to us, the citizens.
True.
Otherwise, if this secrecy just sits with the military, it'll never, make the light of day. So I think that was the major message from the very first hearing, and they kind of touched on a lot of the different mysteries that citizens have been exposed to over the decades. I mean, there's been some great sightings. I think you and I were talking earlier before the show.
Yes.
The Phoenix Lights in the 1990s. Hundreds, thousands of people saw that across 2 states, right? It didn't.
Yeah, I lived it, and I didn't see it. I mean, on a funny side, I'm always honest with the audience, and I know you got a little kick out of this. That night, my phone, that is March 13th, 1997, in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I get a phone call. No, I get hundreds of phone calls. Did you see it? Did you see it? And I laughed. I said, see what? And then afterwards, I told people, honestly, I said I was watching an episode of Seinfeld. And they laughed and said, you should be out there to see it. But I'm not the one who's important in this. What they were seeing, Darcy, you and I talked about this offline, off air. And we were saying that well-respected pilots, the friends of mine that flew aircraft for years, not only in the military, but commercial, said, this flew over Scottsdale, Arizona. And he said to me, Steve, I'm telling you, this thing was about a mile in length, and it had the most bizarre underneath. In other words, and I'm not taking words away from you, I hope, Darcy, is that on the very bottom side, it apparently blacked out the sky, but then it also showed what looked like some sort of an artificial star pattern, and it changed as it went over. My gosh. How could I tell my friend that he's loony and loopy when he saw this and I take his word as credible? What the heck could that have been, right? That's amazing.
Yeah, and so many witnesses. That was a what we call mass witness sighting, right? When you have hundreds of people seeing something, it can't just be hysteria or an illusion or, a government spy plane that's a mile long, right? Like,
correct.
Where are
that's
they going to
massive.
store that? You can't store that at Area 51.
No airport that I know of can handle that.
Yeah,
right?
It probably took off to the stars. Who knows where it went from Arizona after that, but the point is, I don't think that was American tech. And,
I don't either.
In history, we had many sightings that have happened like that. The Ariel School, my friend did a documentary called Ariel, and that's all about this mass witness sighting in South Africa and these kids that were experiencers in broad daylight seeing a craft near their school and entities running around the craft and on top of it. It was wild, and there were sightings in the skies around that time for days, for weeks, until that daytime sighting with many different witnesses. So that type of thing has happened throughout history.
Sure.
And then you've got these high-ranking military officials saying, this is real. Those stories that keep happening throughout history are affirmative, and we're recovering some of them, and we're trying to figure out the tech that's inside of them, and we're seeing some of the dead pilots and sometimes alive pilots, that are not us. So that's a pretty interesting thing. And I think that's actually one of the biggest secrets in the world.
Yeah, but let me ask you, I'm being a little bit ridiculous maybe here, but the question I have to ask you, and I'm sure this is things, permeating and percolating in people's brains listening. What are they afraid of to tell us about this? I mean, I study this, you study this in greater detail, doing these great documentaries and research. I wouldn't lose sleep over this, but what's the big secret? I mean, I sound naive maybe, but why not just tell us, yes, we have this, put one of these things on display if we don't want to see some kind of a, replicant of a human, and who knows, maybe they look better than us. What's the reason? I mean, what's the big secret? Why can't they just disclose that this has happened if people like Fravor and others have seen stuff that's weird? Grush has said we have them. What's your opinion on that? Help us out, because that one bothers me. I don't know why we're never told.
I think the thing we commonly hear is that it would change our energy systems and our economy, the way that we work. If we
good answer, right? I love it.
That is used to run these new technological aircraft that we've found, or spacecraft, let's say, right? And especially when they found them back in the 40s and the 50s and stuff like that, you're not ready to reveal that to the world because you're really just getting this fossil fuel economy going internationally.
Understood.
And you don't want to disturb that. People's psyches are very trained on, the old world of thinking, and you don't want to destabilize that as well and say, hey, maybe we're not God's only creations. Maybe there's many out there, right?
Sure, and it goes back to the original theory when we were told, incorrectly, in astronomical literature and history, that the Earth had to be the center of the universe until smarter people like Copernicus and Galileo, God help them, they didn't just do it easy on a street corner and say, hey, the sun is the center. Through much calamity and much, pain and tribulation to go. I'm agreeing with you on that, but maybe it sounds naive to ask it, but I mean, maybe because we study this, I'd say, well, I'm not going to go crazy over this, but you're right. It would have dramatic effects on world economies if we couldn't then flip the switch and use anti-gravity technology and this type of propulsion system and change the way we're doing things with fossil fuels, et cetera, correct?
Yeah, and it's not that I don't think it would be a flip the switch type of thing. I think that technology, if the military, the third-party military companies are reverse engineering that actively, I don't know how well they've made a breakthrough. I don't think they've made the stuff that they found. I think, we were talking before as well about the TR-3B, a fabled reverse engineered alien reproduction vehicle. That might not have been this amazing tech when it first had its maiden flight in the 80s, right?
You bet.
It might have been kind of like a soapbox alien reproduction vehicle and not very sexy. But we might be making some breakthroughs. It just might not be that sophisticated yet. And I think with AI and just where we're at with the world today, we might be at that precipice where this secret needs to come out and we become a spacefaring civilization.
I would welcome it, and I think our listeners would too. But Darcy, before we go to the hard break at the bottom of the hour, we have a few minutes. I wanted to go back in time in the time machine. Tell us about yourself and how you got started in this. I mean, one day, voila, you wake up and you say, I'm interested in this, and it's not easy to have all these different acclaim documentaries. How'd you get started? Tell the people out there listening. This is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty regular guy. I don't think I was, an alien guy, so to speak, in high school and growing up. I was always interested in sci-fi, and as a family, we would watch X-Files and stuff. So I thought it was all just great fiction. And when I was in university, I studied life in the universe as a elective for my BA. That university course is a 101 astrobiology class, and the book, Life in the Universe, written by Seth Shostak and another author, I read then, and it just opened my mind to the scientific premise that we have to be not alone in our galaxy. Like the Drake equation mathematically says there's got to be millions of civilizations that have evolved on other stars that have suns like ours, and so on and so forth. Planets with oceans like Earth, and I'm dumbing it down here, but it opened my mind to the idea that we're not alone.
Excellent.
And then I got exposed to this whole sort of field by watching earlier documentaries made by other filmmakers like James Fox and Jose Escamilla, and the list goes on. I studied film as my major and sociology.
Ah, yes.
And you actually watch documentaries in sociology. That's the social study of people in groups. Noam Chomsky, a famous sociologist, and so I was into documentary filmmaking before I ever thought of making a documentary. And, it's fast forward to 2012. I said to myself, I want to document the story of this guy named Phil Schneider. This was a guy who was like an old whistleblower for his time. In the early 90s, he was going on lecture tour, talking about working on underground bases for the American military, secret projects, and he said he got into a firefight with aliens and lost his fingers, and he kind of blew my mind open to this idea that
he would mine too. That's incredible. And I want to remind everybody before we go to this hard break, our special guest, Darcy Weir, producer, director, and writer. Folks, if you have questions about this subject, and I'm sure you're teeming with questions out there and bubbling over, the contact number, 1-800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-9222. Darcy's website, check it out, ladies and gentlemen, and maybe not necessarily right this minute, but after the 2-hour show, or as you see fit. occultjourneys.com. This is fascinating stuff because, with your permission, my friend, I'd like to get into so many of the different documentaries that you have, produced. And again, this is something that really interesting. I'm always fascinated by documentaries. I'd watch PBS all the time and watch the different shows on there that they would have all different, guests and deep, details on subject matter like that. And that's interesting because you can learn so much by being in there. Now, have you gone to some of these film festivals? I'm sure you've been all over the place, previewing your documentaries.
Yeah, for UFO-related documentaries, it's not very widely accepted at places like Sundance.
Really?
No, not really. I mean, I got rejected by a lot of them.
How sad? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. The very first time I heard that a big UFO film was accepted to a festival was actually just last year or was it earlier? It was earlier this year at South by Southwest.
Yes.
Dan Farah's new film. This was a producer on Ready Player One. He's also turned his mind towards the UFO issue. He has a documentary that's kind of sitting out there. It's ready to get distributed soon, but it's called Age of Disclosure, and it has a lot of these guys' testimony in it, like David Grush and Lou Elizondo, Tim Gallaudet. The list goes on.
Well, we're going to get into that as we go to this break. And when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, again, 1-800-848-9222. We'd love you to be part of the dialogue with your questions and comments. What's the topic? Opening up our minds on the mysteries of the universe. This particular iteration of the Dr. Sky Experience, talking in depth with Darcy Weir, producer, director, and writer, on so much that's going on. And also we'll get into, as people I'm sure have questions about, the recent congressional hearings and what happened behind those closed doors. We'll be right back here in the Dr. Sky Experience, broadcast nationwide around the world, and I'm sure even out to the cosmos. We'll be right back with more with our special guest, Darcy Weir.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I happen to be privileged enough to be in on the fact that we have been visited on this planet and the UFO phenomenon is real. A quote from former NASA astronaut Edgar Mitchell of Apollo 14, a friend of this radio show, and you hear his voice throughout various productions and iterations and experiences with the Dr. Sky Experience. Right now, as we continue to move through time and space, our very special guest for these 2 hours, Darcy Weir, producer, director, and writer, and your questions and comments at 1-800-848-9222. Darcy, let's talk a little bit about this new iteration of the, as I call them, not necessarily the whistleblowers, but this particular conference that happened just a few days ago. Give us an update on what happened behind those closed doors.
Yeah, I think the three sort of bombshell witnesses, other than my friend George Knapp, who, is another popular journalist that's
yes, sir.
covering the UFO beat for a long time. Three witnesses that are very high profile in this new testimony, new whistleblower movement. Alejandro Wiggins, Jeffrey Nusatelli, and Dylan Borland. So One's an Air Force veteran. Another one's an Air Force security officer. And the other one is a senior chief operations specialist with the U.S. Navy. And all of them came forward with very credible UAP sightings, prevalent events that happened that the military engaged with. Alejandro Wiggins talked about another Tic Tac UFO incident that happened February 15th of 2023, where an object exited the water, and he tracked that object on radar as well as in FLIR, forward-looking infrared footage. And that was about a 5 to 6 minute encounter before it shot off into space. Jeffrey Nusatelli talked about the Vandenberg Air Force Base incursion, where a giant red square object interacted with the launch facilities there at the Vandenberg Air Force Base on October 14, 2003. And that red square object returned that night and kind of, probed his house and him, so to speak. So,
this is amazing.
Yeah. And then Dylan Borland is an Air Force veteran that was a analyst at the Geospatial Intelligence Agency, which is the same place that David Grush came from. He was also, a high-ranking intelligence agent there. And when he worked for Bay Systems Aerospace Company, he was a UAP witness at a base, and he's just a new guy that's saying, "Look, I'm putting my name and my story on the line here. I'm risking my job prospects, and because it's something that's so heavily stigmatized, he's kind of felt that." Social stress, and he's still going to go forward and tell his story. So pretty courageous guys for coming forward and telling the world about these military events. He saw a triangle. Dylan Borland saw a flying triangle that had a liquid sort of changing surface on the bottom, similar to what people reported with the Phoenix Lights, let's say, but a smaller craft, and then it shot off into space very silently without, causing any wind turbulence or sound. So, pretty interesting stuff.
Well, I want you to take the time to explain this one, too, to the audience. The media has picked up on this one story, and I want you, please, to kindly explain this. We hear about a story overseas where a military aircraft or helicopter is shooting some type of Hellfire missile, if that is indeed what it is, at something moving at incredible speed, roundish, moving in an ungodly way that no aircraft does. Boom, fire the Hellfire missile, and what does it do? It bounces off of the object, the UAP, a UFO, whatever you want to call it, and some of the shrapnel is then pulled back so it doesn't go out. Let me not steal your thunder on this. Describe this, and this is one of the videos that was shown at this last congressional hearing, correct?
Yeah, it was. I do prefer the Tic Tac video, which is also FLIR footage that Chief Wiggins showed. But this UAP footage you're talking about with the Hellfire missile has stolen the show, and the reason why is it's really kind of fractured people's opinions. One side, people are saying that's a credible UAP. That is an alien reproduction or a alien spacecraft, right? And then the other half are saying that is a balloon. And that Hellfire missile didn't even detonate. It just sliced through it, kept going, and 3 pieces of fabric or shrapnel or something fell out of it when it got sliced open and drifted off in the air. So it's
right, but how do balloons move that fast? That's the question that even a child would wonder. How does a balloon accelerate to such great velocity? Unless that's just a image that shows up from a perspective. Maybe the wind did it from an angle. I doubt it, Darcy. So let me hear what you think on that. How does a balloon go in such great speed, with great speed?
Yeah, I mean, there was a NASA UAP debunk panel, I call it, in 2024, and that was hosted with a scientist named Joshua Semeter, who's a physicist for a university in the United States. I can't remember right now. But Joshua Semeter went up there and debunked the Go Fast UAP video that was released earlier. He debunked the gimbal UAP video. And he would say, probably when he looks at that balloon, what some people interpret as a balloon, that the Hellfire missile hits, the reason why it looks like it's going so fast is actually a misinterpretation based on a parallax effect, which usually is because it's going over the ocean and the aircraft is passing at a certain speed and a certain distance, that parallax effect actually doesn't interpret the speed's object properly. So that's probably what the debunker is relying on with regards to that video and the speed being lesser. When he debunked the Go Fast UAP video, the original assessment of that was that it was going at maybe 150 miles per hour, 200 or something, and then he did a physics sort of interpretation based off of the telemetry data that they actually had, the heads-up display information from the FLIR camera footage,
right?
And he said, well, due to the parallax effect, it was actually really going only maybe 40, 50 miles tops, which is not that remarkable, right? But still, the problem with the Go Fast UAP video, this is the middle of the ocean. You don't have a place to store craft that are pill-shaped, like, disc-shaped possibly, and refuel them. It didn't have any traditional flight surfaces like a plane or a drone. It just looked like this orb, right? So
I see.
It was still anomalous in a way. He might have then argued it was a balloon, right?
Sure.
Now, the new footage that was just released with the Hellfire missile, I can't say for sure that parallax effect took place, but I'm just telling you this is probably what Arrow and Joshua Semeter are going to do to tackle that video. That's what they've done in the past. That's what they'll do again. It could have been very anomalous. And look, the weird thing to me that no one has been properly able to explain with regards to the missile going through it, cutting like butter through it, and then it looks like it kind of gets deflated. It looks like a soft target, so to speak. 3 kind of balls come out of it after. And
I didn't know that. Right.
Yeah, if you look at the footage, they're kind of locked in this like triangular formation. So almost like we've seen before with UFOs, sometimes 3 orbs are shaped like sitting in a almost like geosynchronous orbit to each other, evenly distanced, and they form a triangular shape. So that was a weird thing. People have said, "Oh, that's just debris. That's a soft target. It's definitely a balloon." I think the real story is the testimony from Chief Wiggins, how he saw a Tic Tac come out of the ocean. They tracked it, and then it flew off. We see the video with that. I think that's more compelling. I think the Vandenberg Air Force Base and Jeffrey Nusatelli's testimony behind that, and then a later encounter he had personally with another person, that's more credible. And then I think, again, Mr. Borland's base encounter with a triangle, again, very compelling. So.
No, that's incredible. I mean, you've done a great job on this, and we're up against another break here, but I just wanted to mention before we go to that, Ladies and gentlemen, you know we bring the best guest in class on this particular archive, the Dr. Sky Experience, that we, of course, can go out and scour through recommendations, through obviously people who are credible authors, and today our very special guest, if you're just joining us, Darcy Weir, producer, director, and writer. You can visit his website, of course, and take a little kind of scan through that at occultjourneys.com. The man has so much there in the way of documentaries. We're going to get into a whole bunch of those. But, Darcy, what I'd like to talk about when we come back from this one break as we wrap up hour number one, and folks, you ain't heard anything yet because we're going to continue on in hour number two with so many amazing stories that our special guest has. But what I want to do, Darcy, with your permission, is talk about the significance of the sightings in the New York metro tri-state area, starting maybe back in September and October a year ago, that really rattled people, and still there's no explanations. We'll be right back here on the Dr. Sky Experience with our special guest, Darcy Weir. Your questions and comments, of course, at 1-800-848-9222. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I examined a lot of CIA declassified UFO files, which are fascinating, because there was a huge UFO craze going on in America. There still is today. But certainly it started in 1947, and by the 1950s, it was in full force. That quote from author Annie Jacobson, a great journalist, author on another great book about Area 51. 47 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, we're joined, as you know now, hopefully, Darcy Weir, producer, director, and writer, as he continues to talk all about these amazing subjects, UAPs, UFOs. But let's go to the callers, Darcy, if we can. They're certainly patient and waiting. Let's say good morning to Ryan in Rockland County. You're on with Darcy Weir. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. This show is fascinating, but this thing with UFOs and space aliens, I mean, I think it reached its peak in the 1970s with the National Enquirer offering rewards for somebody to produce a space alien. Of course, nobody ever did.
Right.
The thing I would say is this is a cottage industry. You guys have never seen a space alien nor talked to one, and nor has anybody ever talked to a space alien. So I'm wondering, but you guys seem to be intellectual and smart. Why aren't you more worried about America being turned upside down than some little green monster flying in from Mars or something, which has never happened? I don't understand this. It's a cottage industry, I understand, but isn't there more fascination out there?
Ryan, you know what? We respect your dialogue, but let our special guest Darcy respond to this, because he's got way more experience than I do in bringing this subject to the table. Darcy, you're on.
Yeah, Ryan, if you do follow this subject, you are right. It is a cottage industry, and there's all kinds of hucksters. There's all kinds of BS out there, and I'm wary of that. But there are credible experiencers that say that they have seen and talked to aliens. I mean, Travis Walton was mentioned in one of the breaks earlier today.
We know him, right? Mm-hmm.
And I think his case is a slam dunk for witnesses that were with him at the time when the craft sort of zapped him, and they thought he was dead. They got in the car, took off. They were scared for their lives. He was missing for 4 days. He turns up. He tells this incredible story of being on board a extraterrestrial craft, meeting the occupants. They put him to sleep. He was returned. So I think stories like that, they have precedence in maybe there being a reality that we're not alone.
Well, Ryan, look, I appreciate you. You get the last word here because we're lighting up the phone lines here with our special guest. Go ahead.
And I do worry about
go ahead.
The United States being turned upside down, Ryan. I do think that the Epstein files should be released. I do think the JFK files were not fully released, and that was a very prominent assassination in history. And we just had an assassination this past week that was horrible. How
sad. A cruel and despicable act, you bet. Well, Ryan, you get the last word. You want to say anything back to Darcy and conclude this particular dialogue? You're on if you want to say something. Go ahead.
I could talk about this for hours, but I could tell you some Travis Walton, a lot of people, that was a National Enquirer, one of the payments they wanted to make for someone to produce something. It was claimed to be a hoax later on. But the thing with Charlie Kirk you just mentioned, he had bodyguards around him, but he had no security team. Isn't that kind of like fishy? You guys are intelligent. Why would they not secure it after
Ryan, let me say this, my friend. Hey, I don't want to cut you short, but look, I spent a lot of time in the LE law enforcement world and firearm training. I could talk for hours about this. I have to agree with you. I think that was the worst security you can imagine for anybody. When you look around, Ryan, when you sit there and you look at any point higher, I mean, that's an easy shooting gallery shot. Not necessarily easy with a rifle, but any kind of weapon. You know, long gun we're talking about, not a pistol. So you're right. But that isn't the subject at the moment, but we do appreciate you, Ryan, for bringing it up. I agree with you, Ryan. The security there was horrible, in my opinion. We'll leave it at that. Let's say good morning to Bob in Yonkers. You're on with our special guest, Darcy Ware. How you doing, Bob? How's it going?
Dr. Sky, once again, unbelievable show. Unbelievable.
Thank you.
You should be on it 5 days a week. Anyway, my question is, didn't the president state not too long ago, before he became president, or not too long ago, but that he would order the release of all information concerning UFOs? What happened to that?
Good question. What happened to the Epstein files? We're still waiting on all that, right? But it all disappeared, and he's probably, hopefully, not going to say the same thing about the UAP or UFO issue. Hopefully he delivers on that. And I know that this has become a flashpoint subject on both the Democratic and the Republican side.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think
you said it, Bob. Yeah.
It's one of the bipartisan issues, and there's not very much that there is bipartisan support for. I think this is something that could unite people. You know, if you actually release that data, it will make people build trust in the government again. Instead, we're just
well said, right? Yeah.
We're just getting mud thrown in our face and told there's nothing to see here, folks. And that's becoming a pattern, right? And I keep mentioning the Epstein files. I think we should be mad as hell that that's being covered up.
Disclosure's the term, right? Disclosure's the word. Bob, you can wrap it up. Your response back. We're trying to get as many callers in on here as we can.
I would like to say thank you very much, Dr. Sky. What you're doing is fantastic. And I would ask everyone who's listening to your program to send a letter in requesting that you be on 5 days a week, because your information is very, very important to mankind.
Well, you're so kind. And there's many other great hosts on this station. But thank you, Bob, for your confidence. And we don't even know each other, so we can't say that I put you up to it, right? There you go, Bob. Thank you so much. Let's continue, ladies and gentlemen, to the top of the hour. Let's go down to talk with JR in Georgia. The UFO went down to Georgia, so they speak. Good morning, JR. How you doing?
Hey, good morning. And Dr. Sky, like everybody is saying, excellent presentation every time I have a chance to listen to your show, and guest superb. What's interesting, back in the late 70s, there was all these sightings, and there were many UFO clubs, because I was in one, and Gulf Breeze was a big story. And then they all of a sudden came out and said it was false. But we, as many people in there, still down there, if you go out there and by Gulf Breeze, you'll see them out there with the telescopes and everything. I'm surprised that nobody's talked to anybody down there, because it was called Big Bertha, and I saw the energy field. It was like a oscillating black and orange oval that was
amazing
under these craft going by. Now, I couldn't judge, because it was up. I mean, I couldn't shoot it. It was at night, about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, pretty dark, but it definitely went across the sky. Now, guys went down there on weekends and during the week, and then one time they said it came back. It went out towards the Gulf. It was like, I think by Pensacola, between Gulf Breeze and Pensacola, there's a peninsula and there was a bridge.
Fascinating.
And there was all these guys are out here. Anyways, it comes from the inside, goes out to the Gulf, couple minutes, and then it comes flying back, and here comes 3 jets after it.
Wow, that's amazing.
I wasn't there this time. Yeah. It shoots up, and then it's like the old story in Michigan and Illinois. It just breaks off into 3 different parts and, vaporizes or disappears. But you would think that somebody down in Florida, or they would go down there and confirm that it's still flying down there, or the clubs are out there that give you current information.
You bring up something good, JR, but I wanted Darcy, respond. But let me first thank you for your personal comments, and I hope you'll continue to join us on the Dr. Sky Experience. Time runs out. I wish we had more time to do all these particular details. But, Darcy, your response to JR, where the UFO went down to Georgia, as I say. There you go.
Yeah, so the Gulf Breeze UFO incident, I think that the thing about this and what happens quite often with mass witness sightings is that something real happens, and I agree JR probably did see something, and multiple residents of that area during the late 80s, of like 1987 into early 88, they were seeing, it was a UFO flap. It was like UFOs over the water there, going in and out, sometimes being paced by military craft. And what happened was, apparently, Ed Walters kind of entered the scene, and he started producing these photographs that all had a similar UFO in it. Sometimes above a road, sometimes above trees, sometimes, over the water or something like that. What people kind of thought, and I've seen him on Oprah from back in the day and stuff, is that maybe he jumped onto the UFO wave that actually many credible people saw, and he created photos to become sort of a center of attention regarding it.
That's amazing, and I hate to cut you guys short, but the clock rules here. JR in Georgia, I appreciate this. We're going to cover this in hour number 2. And with your okay, Darcy, I'd like to get into the Pascagoula 73 documentaries that you've done, which I think is apropos to the discussion that JR is giving us. And folks, if we haven't gotten to you, like Lauren in New Jersey, Robert in Philadelphia, please stand by. We appreciate your patience and your kindness to be part of our experience. We call it, if you're a new listener around the nation and the world, and who knows, maybe out into the cosmos. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we call it the Dr. Sky Experience. And always, 1-800-848-9222 if you want to etch that phone number into the side of the wall. Or, of course, simply put it into your smartphone or device or your handy computer. We do appreciate the opportunity to do what we call our First Amendment, freedom of speech, as we love on this show, Darcy, as you probably hear. Of the 4 different types of conversation, debate, discourse, diatribe, we like dialogue. And that's where we have a conversation with you, and you have a conversation with us. Stay tuned. More with Darcy Weir, ladies and gentlemen. Check his website out if you have a moment. It's really jam-packed with great information. It's occultjourneys.com, and you're hearing it here live on the Dr. Sky Experience. Folks, we'll give you a little bit of a sky update, too, as to what's happening in our heavens, and that'll occur in hour number 2, because many of you hear the particular intro that talks about and says, and we believe it, always keep your eyes to the skies. We'll be right back with more with our special guest, Darcy Weir, and your questions and comments.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
At 3 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dr. Sky Experience as we come on the air here on Talk Radio 77, WABC, of course. Email me at DRSKY, Dr. Sky, at WABCRadio.com. And while you're at it, we invite you, ladies and gentlemen, no matter where you're listening, as we move deeper into your weekend, hopefully it's a beautiful one for each and every one, you can listen to more of the previous programs in the form of podcast. And you can simply go to www.wabcradio.com or redappleaudionetworks.com. And not only the Dr. Sky Experience, but what about all those other great hosts here 24 hours a day? Thanks again to our producers. That's the helmsmen, as we call them, in our imaginary starship. As we move through time and space, Tony and Bill navigating this incredible signal of, yes, 77 WABC. Welcome to hour number 2. We're speaking with Darcy Weir. He's a producer, a director, and a writer. So many things under his belt in the world of UFOs, ufology, and the paranormal. his website, occultjourneys.com. Darcy, thanks for being with us again. I know it's late in the morning for you, or early in the morning, as we say, but thanks for being a trooper. And we continue out with the callers. If we hadn't had you get on the air, you're patient, and we appreciate your time. Darcy, thank you, and let's say good morning to Lauren in New Jersey. How are you this morning? Thanks for your patience.
Oh, my goodness. No problem with waiting. I really thank you for your program and your amazing guest tonight. I'm just going to be checking out his website, but I was wondering what your thoughts are on the 3-Eye Atlas and the latest information that came out that it's turning green. So I'll be quiet and listen to your thoughts on this interstellar object.
Yeah, Darcy, any thoughts on that? I mean, I have some from the astronomical, but go ahead. I don't want to take your thunder on this.
No, I don't want to take your thunder, but
Okay.
I will say at this point, for me, 3-Eye Atlas is not a big deal. It's not I don't think it's, an alien spacecraft coming to dock with Earth like Alien Nation, that famous 1980s TV show. Maybe we'll take a couple alien refugees, but I think it's something prosaic, like maybe it is a comet or something like that.
Sure.
It hasn't done anything for me in terms of looking at what they're releasing. Like, because it turns green, it doesn't mean to me that it's a spaceship. I think it's just we're seeing the colors change as something that's emitting, possibly rock and ice and stuff. Possibly is changing color as it gets closer. I don't know, but
let me jump in on it, if I may, Darcy. Yeah. I mean, from the astronomical side, Lauren, now your question is more specific about the astronomical side on this, but I'll be brief. Darcy, and what we're learning, Lauren, is that this particular object truly is an interstellar object. How do we know that? Really simple. If you look up at orbital geometry, circles, ellipses, parabolas, this is in a hyperbolic orbit. What does that mean? If people look at it, because this is theater of the mind, anything that has a hyperbolic orbit has a far and wide out part of its orbit. So this comet has been identified as not coming from what we call the Oort cloud beyond the end of the solar system, where most comets, because of the gravity of the sun, come from. So what makes this strange, Lauren, and jump in on this too if you agree or disagree. The object was discovered, its orbital plane is that of identified as an interstellar one, and it's strange in the fact that it hasn't done what most comets do this early in their gestation or, evolution. It has turned green, you're right. It's probably due to heavy layers of carbon monoxide, what they call cyanogen gas, and not to make this overly complicated, the comet itself exhibits some very different, maybe not strange, reflex. But the part that I'm really not too keen on, and I know Darcy and I are pretty much in sync on this, some are saying that there's a probability that it'll release little probes out of it. Well, if it released probes, it wouldn't be a comet. So, Lauren, what do you think? I mean, you're following this. You seem like you're interested in cometary stuff. So what's your comment on this?
Well, based on everything I've read, and there are some Harvard and other astrophysicists and all these brilliant people, and some other things I've heard that, it's changing course. At one point, all of our telescopes went down from recording anything visual, and there were no technological issues. And then they came up and they saw that this object had changed course. So I'm like, well, did its changing of course do something to our telescopes, or did they purposely deactivate our ability to visualize what they were doing in order to
Lauren, you're right about this. And there's a connection here, Darcy, about the mysteries and strangeness of what we're talking about, the uniqueness of unidentified objects and life in the universe. The only thing I can say on this, Dr. Avi Loeb, we're trying to get him as a guest on here. I know the man, very nice guy from Harvard, very, very, very smart in what he does. Okay. But his thesis basically, and I don't want to take words from Dr. Avi Loeb because that would be inappropriate, but the truth of the matter is he has conceptualized that this is more of an interstellar probe, And the technical subject that I give homework out very, very rarely, Darcy, and to Lauren, look up the term Bracewell probe. Are you familiar at all what a Bracewell probe is, Lauren? And if not, I mean, it's not a test. No. Look it up because it talks about interstellar spacecraft or something from another universe, Star Trek sci-fi wise. But the reality is the other two objects, the stranger one, and sometimes, sorry to take Darcy's time on this, but your question is good.
No, not at all. I love it.
No, your question is good on this, Lauren, and it's really fascinating because it all ties into the mysteries. So here we go. The other two objects, the strangest one was Oumuamua, the Hawaiian word for scout, that a good friend of mine discovered this back a few years ago, and we had him on at the Haleakala Observatory there in Hawaii. The strange part of Oumuamua is that it looked flat, and they don't really know that it looked flat, but they think it did, and it accelerated as it's leaving the solar system, which normally objects like that would slow down as you're away from the gravity source. And then the other one, the only other interstellar comet, is Comet Borisov, and that is identified as truly an interstellar object. But let me give you the courtesy. Do you have a question for Darcy that relates more to and your question's great on comets or observation, anything you want to add on the UFO subject?
No, not to add. There's so much to learn, and I'm going to continue to listen and definitely check out his website. So thank you so much for being on tonight.
Well, I thank you for your questions, and I think we both are appreciative. Let's continue. Let's go down to the city of brotherly love in Philadelphia as we say good morning to Robert. Robert, good morning. You're on with Darcy Weir. How are you doing this morning?
Hi, Dr. Case. Oh, geez. Dr. Sky and Mr. Weir. It's very interesting to listen to both of you so far. And, you come up with something that you want to call about, and you maybe jot it down so you don't lose your train of thought when you're on the radio.
There you go.
And one of the things that I was going to ask about was the Hellfire missile with the orbs. And then I was going to ask about Avi Loeb's suggestion about there being nuclear power in this comet that's coming in. And as I'm ticking them off as you guys are answering my questions before I was able to get on. But,
well, that's okay, but I want to do something, Robert. You're a regular caller, and I value everybody who's a caller and the patience they have. But someday, and not to take words out of your mouth, I'd like to put words in your mouth. I'd like to talk to you about your experiences with the F-15. Is that another subject we can talk about?
I almost did so last week when you had the guest who was talking about aviation. But I was tied down with something and I wasn't able to call, unfortunately. But I know that I've seen like the radar and naval information from their reconnaissance planes. And these orbs are not balloons, okay? That they timed one going over Iraq, and I believe it crossed the entire country of Iraq in about 6.5 minutes. And they're spotting them at Skinwalker Ranch coming in and out of the mesa. So I think that the way these things operate, they could have been here all along, and we might never have noticed them until we've got so much better at surveilling our skies.
Yeah.
And it looks like they have some kind of an aura around them, like a force field or some kind of, and it just fascinates me. And that's about all I was going to say, because I was going to ask you about Avi Loeb because he had talked about
Sure. Yeah.
And me and you, Dr. Sky, had discussed how we were kind of crossing through the galactic plane, and maybe the interstellar things were as a result of that or whatever. But it's just fascinating to listen to, and I'm sorry my questions were answered. But
that's all right. That's okay. You guys
have yourselves a great weekend, okay?
But hang on for a second. Hang on for a second. I want Darcy to respond. Go ahead, Darcy, to Robert, please.
Yeah, I will say that you're on to something, and I definitely agree with you. My mind seems to go towards orbs and UFOs like Tic Tacs and flying discs and triangles being more prevalently detected by our military and our Department of Homeland Security. The DHS did a August 2023 UAP files dump to the public if you go back and look. So all these different intelligence and military agencies are starting to get videos leaked and discuss this phenomenon more. And if you listen to somebody like Ryan Graves, who in 2014, he had this incursion in the air and they chased this object. you'll listen to him, he'll say that we had just upgraded our state-of-the-art jets with state-of-the-art radar and tracking systems. And when we switched those on, we started detecting these tic-tacs, these orbs, these flying cubes within a sphere. You know what I mean? So
sure.
I do agree that it seems like our technology is catching up, and we're starting to detect things that have possibly been in our skies, in our oceans, in space for longer than we can imagine. But because our technology, AI, all of these things are starting to really push the perspective that we're allowed to know about what's going on around us, they're starting to be reported more. And here we are. Here we are in this future where we're discussing it, and it's becoming realer, becoming more prevalent than ever before. So I agree with you, Robert.
Well, thank you, Robert, in Philadelphia. Thanks for being part of our show, and you've always got some great, inspirational, points to make, questions, comments, and observations, and we do thank you. The one number here is 1-800-848-9222. Our special guest, in case you're just tuning through the broadband spectrum of radio, so no matter where you are, and to any of the Federation starships that are out there, the number once again is 1-800-848-9222. And, of course, to the International Space Station. Wouldn't that be great, Darcy, getting a phone call from them just to tell us what's going on 260 miles above the Earth? That would be a record-breaking thing here on radio. Maybe we should try that. What do you think, Darcy? Maybe we should call up to the space station and get them live.
Let's call the ISS. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. We should try that. Let's continue our conversations as we move through time and space. Let's say good morning to Frank in the great state of Maine, the home of legendary writer Stephen King. Good morning, Frank. How you doing? And do we have
pleasure, and this is it.
Good morning. Go ahead.
Yes. Oh, you have me?
Yes, sir. You're on the air.
Okay. Good morning, Dr. Sky. Always a pleasure, and this is a great conversation we're having with Darcy. It's very, very entertaining and very informative. And I'm, as you can tell, my accent. I am a New Yorker.
Yeah.
I've been up in Maine for the past 7 years, but I'm going to talk about a case in New York proper, Manhattan, that a high-ranking UN official seen, and it was a UFO that was by a skyscraper, and it supposedly took a woman out, but that's neither here nor there. It was observed by a UN, I believe the UN's the head of the UN at the time, and that story seemed to have disappeared. My question is, these stories that do disappear, like something as high-ranking as this person from the UN, do you believe that if you're part of like some organization like the UN, do you think your reputation would be diminished if you reported that type of anomaly being over Manhattan, or would it be? Would you cherish to report it? Like, would that story? Yeah.
I'm going to take an unpopular sort of opinion on this story that you're talking about. So you're talking about Linda Napolitano's 1989 claim of being abducted by aliens over Manhattan. And I know Bud Hopkins was involved in that story quite heavily. I respect the man. I think abduction is a thing. We talked about Travis earlier. The thing that's not well received about that story in terms of the UN man that supposedly saw this craft, no one's ever spoken to the UN man. No one's ever gotten his testimony. That was actually Linda saying that she spoke to a UN man, high-ranking United Nations member that saw the craft. Later on, people kind of deduced that she had made that up. it is covered in the docu-series that's on Netflix, The Manhattan Alien Abduction. She, I think, is in a lawsuit right now with Netflix, the Netflix production team, because...
Wow. Yeah, this gets complicated. Right.
Yeah, they weren't happy with how she was portrayed. But, look, I'm going to kind of go with the Netflix production team here. I don't fully believe that story after reviewing it. And, Dr. Sky and I were talking about Pascagoula 73.
We got to get to that before the clock runs out, too. But, Frank, your follow-up to Darcy here, because, we get these great guests, and, boy, the phone lines light up here. So there you go. Your final comment there, Frank?
That's very interesting that you just said that that this story might have been her imagination or just made up or something to that effect. That blows my mind. That throws my whole psyche about that case out the window, because you don't hear the other side like you just said. You always hear that one side, that if a UN delegate, somebody high ranking, has seen something, then, oh my God, all of a sudden now it becomes real. But now you're saying that maybe she's, maybe this is a made up story. So I think
that part of the story, Frank, just that part with the UN guy, like, they never showed his testimony. They never actually showed a recording or anything archival in the docuseries, because they literally could not find that part of the story, because she claimed that this guy had seen it, but we never have seen that in the public, right? So just that part of the story is what I'm saying is made up. I'm not saying that the UFOs that people saw over Manhattan were unreal. No, that might have been real. The UFO sightings might have been real, but
the mystery continues.
As far as that part of the story, it seems manufactured to create a more elaborate story. You know what I mean?
Well, I have a solution to all this, and it goes back to Frank in Maine, and you know this, Frank. We talked about it. Stephen King's epic Dreamcatcher. If you watch that movie, that has a lot to do, Darcy, I'm sure you've seen it, about something creepy running around the woods of Maine. But Frank in Maine, always a pleasure to listen to you, and thanks for being part of the show to make it happen. We appreciate you. Let's continue now as we call and listen to various callers from around the nation and around the world. Let's say good morning to Jacqueline in Brooklyn. Jacqueline, you're on with Darcy Weir. How are you doing?
Thank you. Good morning to both of you gentlemen. I have a question for both of you. I have never heard anyone pose the theory that I'm about to ask you about. Personally, I don't believe in aliens or any kind of other planetary life or any of these abductions, any of these stories. I'm thinking about it from a different angle. Because especially with this recent Hellfire missile, that there didn't seem to be any type of destruction or damage or devastation, and I've never heard of anything other than some of these people saying that they've been abducted, which I personally don't believe. But I'm wondering if either of you believe in a higher power, God, however you may or may not believe. I wonder if there could be a tie to God, to that higher power. And especially in the times that we are living in recent years, with all of the goings-on throughout the world, if this could be some way of God kind of monitoring us, and who knows what, what His plans are for these types of entities, whatever they may be, craft.
Well, Jacqueline, you bring up some good points, and let me compliment you. I think I hear you. You're the Jacqueline that I hear when I listen out here in Arizona. All day long to WABC, of course. Love the station, naturally. But your insightful comments come across loud and clear, so compliment to you.
Thank
you. Let Darcy answer. My simple thing is, yes, I believe in a God, and I believe in a higher power. But, Darcy, you're on the you got the center of the spotlight.
You know, Jacqueline, I respect that side of things. I think that we have to keep our mind open to any possibility, and if UFOs manifesting are some kind of creation from God that is a message to humanity, I would say that's a positive thing, and I hope that that's part of this mystery. I really do. I hope that there is a higher power trying to help us, because we need help, right? Sometimes we can't do everything on our own, right? But I am also a firm believer that there's life out there in the universe, and they've stopped by to take a visit, and sometimes we might have seen them. So it could be both, It's entirely possible. We live in an age of technology, and all we have to think of that's, relatable is that somewhere out there in this ocean of stars, there's another civilization that has evolved like us and is living in a further age of technology, and they said to themselves, hey, that star over there? It seems to be emitting incredible amounts of radio frequencies. We've picked up some of those signals. They seem to be intelligent. Let's hop over there and take a look at what they're doing.
That's amazing.
That's what happened.
Yeah, you're right. And Jacqueline, if we go into movies like Kubrick's epic 2001: A Space Odyssey, Frank Bowman in one of the scenes, he's going through that dimensional change, and what's his words? My God, it's full of stars. Totally incredible. Jacqueline, thank you. I wish time permitted for more, but if you have a quick closing comment before we go to the heartbreak.
No, I just thank you for your comments, Darcy. And do you think personally that it could have a more higher power component?
I think anything's possible, honestly. And when somebody says higher power, to me that means higher intelligence, higher abilities, higher technology, and maybe God has all that, and maybe our interpretation of God expands when we understand that we're not alone in the universe.
Absolutely. And Darcy, let's hope and pray to the God in heaven that the, as Darcy can explain it better, the different so-called races in the universe out there amongst the billions of stars. One is described as the reptilians. Let's hope it's not a dark force, because that would be a very bad thing, particularly the week we've had with 9/11 and the other, horrible assassination of Charlie Kirk, and putting that all together. Let's hope, as we're talking here in the positive way, that whatever's out there comes to us, not in like sci-fi movies sometimes, mostly negative. Jacqueline, thank you in Brooklyn for your participation in the Dr.
Thanks,
Scott
Jacqueline.
Experience. Thank you so much. Yeah, there you go. But when we come back after the heartbreak, with your permission, I'd like to go over the sightings that people were seeing in the New York metro area during October of last year. It's totally amazing stories. And then, if we can, with your okay, dive into some of these interesting documentaries that you've done. I find them fascinating. And one of them that I'd like to get into, and we'll save the answers and the information when we come back, to talk more about these USOs. So describe to people what USOs are in about a minute or so we can talk not only about things that fly in the sky. What are USOs?
USOs are unidentified submerged objects, which not have only been reported by the military, the navies of the world, but citizens seeing things come in and out of water, oceans,
totally
lakes,
amazing,
rivers, whatever.
Mind-boggling. And we go to the best guests, ladies and gentlemen, that we obviously can go after here around the world on these subjects that open up our minds. The whole goal of the radio show is to open our minds to the wonders and mysteries of the universe. And if we haven't gotten to you, like Alexi in Queens, Mike in Queens, if you're still out there in cyberspace and in the space-time continuum, we'll do our very best to get you on. And for everybody else, still time to join us here on the Dr. Sky Experience. That number, once again, 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. We'll be right back with more with Darcy Weir.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The unknown and mysterious facets of our reality have attracted me to the paranormal since early childhood. A person who's a believer in what might lie out there in the vast cosmos. Author unknown, but obviously more positivity to the subject matter at hand. 31 minutes after the hour, we continue with Darcy Weir. Ladies and gentlemen, this individual is, without a doubt, a renowned producer, director, and writer, and we encourage you to go to his website, occultjourneys.com. Darcy, let's continue on with the callers that we've had waiting patiently, and then I'd like to get on to the subjects that you and I'm sure would enliven and enlighten up the airwaves about particularly subjects of the New York UFOs and some of your documentaries. Let's say good morning to Mike in Queens. You've been patient. Good morning. You're on with Darcy Weir. How you doing? No, Mike. Let's go to Alexi in Queens. Good morning, Alexi. You're on with Darcy Weir. How you doing?
Yes. Good morning, Dr. Sky, and good morning to your guests as well. Listen, I very interesting point to make, and that is, I don't believe 99% of these so-called sightings and encounters. The human mind is being somehow very subtly traduced into seeing things or hearing things. It's called a miasma in one aspect. Mm-hmm. The imaginative function of the subconscious bursts through to the conscious, much in a dream state. In a dream state, when you are asleep, you are capable of seeing and hearing and even touching things. So what happens here is there is some effect that is taking place. There's some element present which is causing many of these people to come to these wonderfully imaginative visions of UAV or whatever you call it. And I think that 99%...
go ahead, Alexi. You don't believe that this is a real manifestation, right? But Darcy...
No,
tell me what you want to say. Go ahead.
I am telling you, this is what I'm saying, that 99% of these pure, simple, subconscious bursting with the dream process into the conscious mind. And people,
I respect your opinion, Alexi.
I understand what you're
go
saying,
ahead,
and there is a term called an egregore. Have you heard of an egregore, Alexi? No?
Alexi, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I wanted you to respond to Darcy.
The concept of an egregore is where a social group of people, they all believe in something so great, and they all think on that, and they all manifest it, basically, eventually into reality. An egregore starts with all kinds of things. I mean, the modern cell phone is an egregore. The space program and launching spacecrafts and getting man on the moon is an egregore, right? It's something that hasn't come true in life, but manifests physically because we put our hearts and minds to it. With a UFO, when hundreds, sometimes thousands of people see it fly over 2 states and end up over Phoenix, Arizona, that's not an egregore. That's something that came before we thought of it. So I don't think that it qualifies as something that we are delusionally manifesting into physical reality. I think there are delusions out there, and people can mistake things that are satellites or, bad pictures of terrestrial technology, and maybe it really is just a airplane. That does happen, but in strange cases, in unique cases, we do have real UFOs that manifest. And when you have multiple Air Force personnel, Navy pilots coming to Congress to say, we tracked these unearthly objects that we then fired upon, and eventually they downed, and we recovered the craft, and we're reverse engineering the technology. Look, that's not something that's delusional.
You're right, Darcy. And Alexi, really quick, because we have to wrap this up, I wanted to jump in, and I wanted Darcy's backup like we're on the same football team trying to get to the goal line and get a touchdown. Alexi, this is interesting, and I knew the woman very well, and I'm sure that Darcy had some experience here. Betty Hill, Barney and Betty Hill in their September 1961 UFO abduction, if you put it in quotes. Now, I met this woman many, many times, and here's the point, and I don't know, not to step on your thought, Alexi, you're entitled to those opinions, but during deep regressive hypnosis, independently of each other, they tell the same abduction-type horrific shared experience, not in the same room at the same time. But right, Darcy, that maybe gives some evidence to say that maybe in certain situations, and I respect you, Alexi, that there is more to this than just simply dismissing it. Would you concur, obviously, Darcy, on that?
Yeah, I think this is a case of a credible abduction that happened in the 1960s, and the Air Force got involved with researching that case. Multiple scientists, Betty Hill drew a star map that apparently the captors identified as their home star system, which was Zeta Reticuli, and she said it was a dual star system. At that time in astronomy, we didn't even know how to detect that, and later on we detected that Zeta Reticuli actually had a dual star system and planets revolving in between. So pretty incredible stuff. I don't think that was a fake case. I think it was real. Mm-hmm. And if they really did meet occupants that were from a different star, well, there you are. That's a non-human origin, NHI.
Right. Alexi, there's so many mysteries out there. I respect you. I mean, this is why we have opinions, and we do this in dialogue. Thanks for calling our show. We're going to move forward and give everybody else an opportunity who wants to talk with Darcy Weir as we welcome Paulie in Westwood. Good morning, Paulie. Thanks for being patient. Your comment or question?
Morning. I just wanted to ask you a quick question. How big is a star, and what is the closest star to us?
Okay. I mean, Darcy, do you mind if I jump on that one?
Yeah, I think I'll let you take that one.
Okay. No, I mean, here we go. And I want to get back on track.
I want to interrupt your...
No. Let me answer you, Paulie. The average star, let's take our sun. It's 865,000 miles across. Putting that into a, human way of talking like in simple street language, it's as if it's the diameter of 109 Earths lined up across. Massive fusion ball. The nearest star to us is part of the Alpha Centauri system. It's a star called Proxima Centauri. Proxima meaning close. It's a little red dwarf star. You couldn't see it in the sky, but it's part of the, triple system or so, maybe even more, of Alpha Centauri 4. It's about 4.2 light years away from us, that one. So that's the closest one. And yet, it goes into the topic of Darcy's talking about. What's out there? There's so many stars now that we have, identification, Paulie, of planetary objects. What's to say they're not? And let Darcy continue because...
How long is a light year?
A light year is 5,880,000,000,000 miles.
Yeah. So if your next question is, how are they traveling that distance to visit our star? I think the common theory is that they've figured out some kind of technology to cross that gap by opening a door on their side, opening a door on our side, and just jumping, not flying across, deep space just to get to our star.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Paulie, are you a believer in the concept? I mean, are you with us on this? Yeah, okay.
I've seen stuff. It's wild.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, we give specific answers on these things.
I see stuff all the time.
But let me do this before we go to our next caller, and I thank you, Paulie, for your participation. I want to get into this, and let's do one more caller, but I want to be fair to the audience if they've been waiting. Then I want to get into the New York area sightings, Darcy, and talk a little bit more about your documentary. So many amazing things that people should definitely take a look at occultjourneys.com. Diane in New Jersey, you've been patient. Good morning. You're on with Darcy Weir. How you doing?
Good morning to both of you, and thank you very much. The drones that were in our area are still here. They're not being reported. I don't hear anything in the news, but they are still here. And in the beginning, the governor's office, when I contacted them, referred me to the FBI because the one that I was noticing was very large. I mean, it was like the size of an SUV, and it was in the front of my property. and they basically gave me, a song and dance. I wasn't getting anywhere. So a group of us, a scientist and a mathematician, we were trying to figure out how we could bring down this drone and into my property, trying to figure out, not harming anyone in doing so. And then, and I told the FBI we were going to do this. I said, if the government isn't going to give us any answers, then we're going to bring it down. And there are a number of scientists who really are anxious to inspect these drones. So we'll do it ourselves. Well, they had been flying at treetop height, and now they're flying much higher. I mean,
well, Diane, no, you bring up a good subject, and you're not stealing anyone's thunder. It's exactly the subject that I wanted Darcy to talk about. So thank you for being part of this, but you may have to take your answer off air on this one because we're coming up on a break. Darcy, this is fascinating. So many people, as Diane is, testifying, have seen these things, the size that she purports, massive compared to little tiny drones. What say you?
I say it is a government operation. I've always said that. I think that this is basically a test flight of a drone system that has been going on since last November. And I think that it's going to continue for a little while, and it may be sort of a psyop to normalize this activity in our skies if authorities want to use these drones in some way, kind of 1984, George Orwellian style.
Right.
Sounds horrible, but they don't seem like aliens or UFO technology.
Well, the thing is, this one had no sound to it. Okay, that was the thing that I found strange.
That's amazing. Yeah.
There was no sound, and when I took a cane and held it as like a rifle, the lights on it went out, and then it disappeared.
That's incredible.
And and then, as I said, they started flying much higher now. And there are lots of different types of drones. That's not the only one. There are a variety of different kinds that are in the sky. And I don't know. You're probably right. They're trying to condition us probably in a variety of different ways.
Maybe, Diane, but let me say this. Thank you. Your participation is very much appreciated here. We come up on a break here, not to cut everybody short, but the subject's fascinating, and the mystery continues after this break because nobody really knows. Your opinion, Darcy, is well respected. And Diane, all I can say is get out those cameras and document these things so people can actually get more hardcore evidence of visualization of these and, documentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming up on that last break of the 2-hour radio show, sad to say, as we move toward the top of the last hour here, the 2 hours of the radio show. But again, a special thank you to owner and operator John Katzimatidis and the executive staff for giving me the opportunity of a lifetime to do this particular program. And ladies and gentlemen, your comments are always welcome here at my email, DRSKY, Dr. Sky, at WABCRadio.com. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Germany may have recovered a flying saucer as early as 1939. The quote from legendary aviator and American patriot Jimmy Doolittle. We continue 46 minutes after the hour to the top of the hour with Darcy Weir, a producer, a director, and a writer. His website, proud to say it again, occultjourneys.com. Let's go to the next caller here. Let's welcome Anthony in Long Island. Good morning to you. We're on with Darcy Weir. How you doing there?
Good morning. The woman that had called recently, she's just discussing God and what people see God in all of this. Nathan Harriman has a theory, system-based, the holographic unified field theory. He proposes that all of physical existence emerges from an underlying informational field, challenging the mainstream view of the mostly empty vacuum. the quantum vacuum as the basis for reality. The vacuum is not empty. Instead of empty space, Harriman asserts that the quantum vacuum is a boundless ocean of energy and information. This zero-point energy field is the fundamental source from which matter and all reality manifests.
Very fascinating. Yeah, this is fascinating.
Well, and my point is that, you know, I grew up with a doctor of physics from Brookhaven Lab, and he had said they stretched the universe from the 1940s onward until, you know, early 2000s, and he said there is no other life that we know of. There is nothing out there. We are it. That's all there is. So, you know, we can look for God, we can look for all this other stuff, but basically we are as a three-dimensional hologram on a two-dimensional surface. And, you know, I think, like your guest there had stated, I think these are all government experiments, government science, you know, manufacturing aircrafts of different sorts, whether it's drones or what have you, or even they could possibly be harnessing some of Nikola Tesla's theories with, you know, it escapes me right now, but I know that.
No, I understand. But Anthony, I got something to add before. No, I want Darcy to get the final word on this, and I'd like you to just, you know, have an opportunity to hear both sides of this. There's a book that I'm going to recommend out there by a gentleman named Rizwan Virk, V-I-R-K. It's called The Simulation Hypothesis. I've interviewed this gentleman, and maybe Darcy knows who he is too.
Oh, yeah.
His book, as a billionaire in the gaming industry, this guy has this very interesting concept. It's Matrix-like, right, Anthony? It says that every single thing in this universe that we see, what we call consciousness and reality, is run by, as I say, and I don't know who it is, some entity or power behind the scenes, behind the curtain. Isn't that fascinating, Anthony? And Darcy, take it away, too, because this is a fascinating concept in quantum physics. We really don't know much about this whole concept at all.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Nassim, his work, and Anthony, thanks for calling in. I would say if you listen to him, you can look this up, Google it. He also says that the sun is a singularity machine. It's where, you know, these basically atomic bomb levels of energy are going off on the surface and inside of it a million billion times a minute, right? Mm-hmm. He also proposed that would be a perfect place to create a, like, sort of jump gate, a wormhole to another star. Wow. Maybe stars are jump gates for these extremely technologically advanced extraterrestrial races. He actually proposed that. I don't think he ever proposed that we're alone in the universe. If you go and listen to him, he'll say the stars might actually be, for all of these different solar systems, a location that you could use as a energy source and a portal to jump to another star. So, I don't know. I mean, he kind of seeded my mind with that idea a long
No, that's amazing possibilities to keep our minds open. But, Anthony, you're bringing intellectual conversation and dialogue. You get the last word if you're there. Thanks for bringing these topics up. Well, what say you in closing?
Yes, well, I think what it really describes, and when you really to simplify it, is that everything is interconnected, and whether it's a black hole or places where the light gets in, our planet feeds us because of the energy of that sun. The star, as it shines, it projects and creates food and energy, and it's all by design in some cosmic way that we can't see. And that's why I think we see God, and that's what made me call, was that woman that called previously, and she brought up the God thing.
Jacqueline,
and that's where there's this interconnection between the energy itself, and then the energy is intelligent, which I think is Harriman's, what he's describing. And fractals, you see fractals in everything as you zoom out of planet Earth, and everything that we see throughout the universe, you can see fractals in it if you look hard enough. You just have
Anthony, right, in concurrence what you're saying in closing, the gentleman you've been hearing on here, who is a friend of mine and a friend of many, Dr. Edgar Mitchell of Apollo 14. And he had an out-of-body experience, as he claimed, but he was part of a group called the Noetic Institute. Look it up, folks. Yep. And he had this conversation that everything is interconnected, as you're talking, Anthony, and of course, as Darcy would agree, that there's something called the quantum hologram that exists to connect even the tiniest of creatures, as if you could see it in an extrapolated 3D dimensional thing with all connectivity, that everything, even plants, animals, energy, all this is interconnected. But this is amazing, and I appreciate all the callers here. We've tried to get to everybody because of their patience. But, Darcy, you get the floor here as we go to the top of the hour. We've got about 5 minutes. Yeah. Talk about some of these documentaries. I know it's unfair to you to have to go through them all in such short time, but
okay.
Let me ask you this. I'd like you to come back here as time goes on. What say you on this? And I hope
Absolutely.
It's a yes. Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to. You have a wonderful show.
Thank
the guests that come on are all very knowledgeable and open, and I love it. It's funny you bring up Dr. Edgar Mitchell and the Noetics Institute. The latest documentary that I launched, you can go on Amazon Prime right now. It just hit. It's called The Psychic Phenomenon.
Wow.
And the Noetics Institute let me use footage from an interview that he did with them talking about his first psychic epiphany when he was coming back from the moon during the Apollo 14 mission on the way to Earth. He was carrying out these Xenocard psychic experiments with friends that were on Earth associated with J.B. Ryan, the J.B. Ryan Institute, that is a psychic institute in North Carolina. And those initial psychic tests spurred Russell Targ to go and start the research at RSI, which eventually evolved to the CIA and DIA psychic programs, which, heralded the Stargate program. We got the Men Who Stare at Goats movie out of that
amazing
sort of stuff. All that connects to also abductee, experiencer encounters with non-human intelligence. Sometimes people that just see UFOs experience psychic thoughts beamed into their heads. So we kind of we explore all of that in this new film, The Psychic Phenomenon. We have Thomas Jane, the actor from The Expanse and The Punisher and Dreamcatcher, which you mentioned earlier in the show. We have Edgar Mitchell, Russell Targ, many psychics that were part of these government programs. Paul H. Smith, Joe McMoneagle, Chris Ramsey, who's an up-and-coming UFO researcher.
Yeah, we had McMoneagle on talking about remote viewing, and I thought he did a great job, but I think it was way over the head of myself and many others to think that you could lie back with the CIA, allegedly, and picture in your mind what's going on in the Soviet Union at a secret naval base and describe it as if you're watching it on television. That's bizarre.
And he also talks in this documentary about remote viewing structures on Mars that apparently were built by an alien nation, a non-human nation. Yeah. So we kind of explore all that in the documentary. I've made documentaries about abduction, like Being Taken, or the docu-series Pascagoula 73 about Calvin Parker and Charlie Hickson's incident in October 11th of 1973.
Right, so much to talk about.
On the Mississippi River. I made a documentary about the TR-3B called The Rise of the TR-3B, which is a series of docs called Secret Space UFOs. We talked a little bit about that craft, but, we could go pretty deep into that.
Well, I hope we do that again, Darcy, as the clock runs out, but always a privilege and honor to listen to you. Darcy Weir, ladies and gentlemen, check him out at occultjourneys.com, and he's agreed to come back, and we'll certainly take advantage of that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Darcy, the best to you and your family, and to all the listeners out there. We do a quick sky report, as we promise everyone, because you hear the promo or the introduction talking about always keep your eyes and watch the skies. We find out that another comet has come into the solar system. It's one that we should be watching, called Swan 25b, not something to be bragging about for visibility to the naked eye yet. It's in the southern hemisphere. An asteroid known as 2025 FA-22, get a load of this, 600 foot in diameter. It's going to pass well within about 500,000 miles of the Earth, and that occurs on September the 18th. No damage, to the Earth or anything like that. The moon right now passing its last quarter phase. If you're an early morning riser, you will get to see something amazing coming up on the 19th. That is the morning of. Don't miss it. Clear sky view as you look, of course, into the early morning sky in the east. You'll see the thin, waning crescent moon, that beautiful little horn-shaped thin moon. Just below it, by a degree, the planet Venus, the brilliant star Regulus, which is the lead star in Leo, the zodiac sign, Leo the Lion. It's 77 light years away. If you have a camera with your smartphone, be out in the early morning of September the 19th and see this most amazing conjunction of, I would say, of biblical proportions. Next week, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have some amazing guests, as always, here on the Dr. Sky Experience. And if you're a new listener, the time slot that we've been available to do, and that is with great, thanks to the executive staff and to owner and operator John Katsimatidis, midnight, Friday to 2 a.m. Saturday morning, Eastern Daylight Time now. And, of course, Saturday, as you're listening, midnight to 2 a.m. on as we move into Sunday, Eastern Daylight Time. Again, I want to thank our navigators. These are the helmsmen, Tony and Bill, for navigating the signal. And now we pass the torch of knowledge and dialogue on to DJ McCormick for the other side of midnight. Health and happiness, clear skies. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Dr. Sky Experience. You can hear the Dr. Sky Experience Saturday mornings, midnight to 2 a.m. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?